Hi, I'm David Shuck, and you're listening to Blowout. And today we are going back to our indigo soaked roots. That's right, this is a Denim episode. Longtime listeners will remember our 13-part, 7-hour audio epic about the history of denim, where we covered 500 years of history of our favorite fabric. Relax, we are not doing that again. That was the equivalent of a graduate level seminar, and instead, this is Denim 101. And by the end of it, you should have all the tools and info you need to make an informed purchase and join the wonderful fraternity of people who talk about their jeans way too much. If you only know whispers of the discomfort associated with raw denim, the supposed high cost, or even about people putting their jeans in the freezer or wearing them to the beach, then this one is for you. So sit back as we dive into why it's important, where it came from, how it's made, who's making it today, how to take care of it, and the real reason a lot of you are probably here. You already know all this and you just want to make sure I get it right and then send me an angry email if I don't. So pay attention and let's begin. First off, just what is raw denim? It is not denim that is undercooked or denim that is particularly chafed, although you might be while wearing some of it. Raw denim, also known as dry denim, is simply denim fabric that remains unwashed, untreated, and pretty much untouched from when it rolls off the loom to when it is sold to you. It hasn't been bathed in enzymes, rolled in stones, scraped with sandpaper, or shot by lasers. It is denim in pretty much its purest form. Though raw denim usually has a crispy and stiff feel and leaves traces of its indigo behind when it rubs against another surface, sometimes even on your hands. So this phenomenon is called crocking, and if you have a new pair of jeans, maybe don't wear them on your friend's white couch. But why even go through the hassle of all that just for a new pair of jeans? One of the biggest benefits of raw denim and the indigo loss is that they develop and age based on what you do in them and to them. So every mile you walk, every scrape on the concrete, every item you regularly keep in your pocket leaves its mark. And the dark indigo dye that's on the outside of the jeans slowly begins to chip away, revealing the light electric blue and eventually the white cotton core of the denim yarns the more that you wear them. So what's left is a wholly unique garment that was formed and faded to you and you alone. So it's a canvas that paints itself, and the pair that you have after 6 months or a year or 5 years is going to look completely different than anyone else's that already has the same pair and started off at square one. If you want to see examples of these faded raw denim, we have our fade section of Fade Fridays and Fades of the Day that we have been posting for years, and we have literally thousands of examples of different brands and what people have been doing in them and the different results they've achieved, so you can see the before and after. But beyond that and the personalization aspects, other benefits of raw denim include greater durability. Because the fabric has not been artificially stonewashed, lasered, and sandblasted, you get the full life of the fabric involved. This is why so many of these vintage garments have lasted so long, that pre-washed and pre-distressed jeans are, in a way, pre-worn and distressed and pre-digested. So it's the life of the jean has artificially been sucked out of them to get that look. So they're going to last significantly longer regardless of the quality of the fabric. If you have something that's raw, it's automatically going to last longer than something that isn't. Raw denim is also more eco and labor friendly because it takes an awful lot of water to grow enough cotton for a pair of jeans. But washing and distressing them takes even more. It's an average of about 40 liters of water per jean for the washing and distressing cycle from a raw pair of jeans. But if you buy raw, none of that water needs to go to waste, and it also doesn't expose workers to the harmful chemicals often used to distress and wash denim. Also, they're like sitting at grinding wheels, and there's just like lots of fluff flying in the air while they're sandpapering these things. A lot of people get lung problems just from inhaling so much of the denim, like flakes and particles that are in the air of some of these distressing factories. If you don't distress it, people don't need to breathe that. There's also less clutter because many raw denim fans will wear the same pair of jeans every day for months or years at a time. I'm one of those people. So even though they're more expensive, they could pretty much be your only pair of jeans, and they could last a lot longer on a per wear basis than something that's pre-distressed. So you end up getting better value, even though you might have to spend a little bit more at the beginning. So now that you know maybe why somebody would want to dig into it, what is the history of raw denim? The vast majority of denim jeans sold today are distressed and washed before you buy them. Nearly all denim was sold raw and crispy and new and hard like cardboard up until around the late 60s, early 1970s. As denim was primarily a workwear fabric, hence the term blue collar was primarily about blue indigo clothing. And denim was sturdy and tough, but still could be relatively soft, flexible, and comfortable once it was broken in. So the word denim comes from the original name of the fabric, serge denims, serge meaning sturdy fabric, and denim meaning from the town of Nîmes, France. But there is some contention over whether denim was actually developed in Nîmes or if people were just trying to make their fabric seem more exotic, like it was from Nîmes. But everyone agrees that there's one event that solidified denim jeans as we know and love them today. Gonna go back to the early 1870s when a Latvian immigrant tailor named Jacob Davis was producing clothing for gold miners in Reno, Nevada. Davis had developed a new way to secure the stress points on pants: copper rivets. It seems so simple now, but a lot of people had not come up with that idea by that point. The miners that he sold to were thrilled with the increased durability, and Davis tried to capitalize on the discovery by patenting his invention, but had failed several times at the patent office, which was likely because his English was something like his fourth language, and he could not write and format the application correctly. So instead of try another time and fail, Davis reached out to his fabric supplier in San Francisco named, get this, Levi Strauss, a Bavarian dry goods merchant, about going into business together. Strauss and Davis received the patent on May 20th, 1873, and soon began making the riveted denim jeans, which they called waist overalls, that would define how we think of jeans today. So, jeans were about as far away from the fashion world as possible at this point. It was pure utilitarian function, sort of like, I don't know, what you would imagine a high-vis construction worker's vest or the suit that someone would wear working in a metal foundry. If anyone cared to look at the brand or the make of the denim that they were wearing, it was purely to see which one would hold up better under abuse. And this would be denim's identity through the early 20th century. It wasn't until the about 1920s that denim's reach began to expand beyond workwear, as denim jeans became the de facto cowboy uniform in revisionist Hollywood Western films, and children all over the country wanted a pair so they could dress up like, Gunsmoke or Stagecoach or any of their other on-screen idols. And I say revisionist because cowboys didn't wear jeans. Jeans came about sort of after the cowboy and cattle drive era. So none of them were wearing jeans. It was just a thing that they did on screen because people associated jeans with the West and dude ranches. So yeah, it was sort of a false narrative, but hey, they look pretty cool, don't they? So at this point, denim was still largely a costume to most Americans, but it did serve to normalize denim to the middle class. And then it became even more normalized during World War II when many Americans put on denim for the first time as they went to work in factories to produce for the U.S. war effort or wore them abroad because denim was a big part of the naval uniform at around this time. Once the war ended, though, many soldiers and workers refused to take their jeans off. So this gave denim a countercultural and antisocial bent, as wearing jeans in polite company in the 1950s was considered transgressive at best and immoral at worst. There was a movie called Blue Denim that literally showed how wearing jeans would lead to underage premarital sex and teen pregnancy. It was sort of like Reefer Madness, but think of it about pants. But this sentiment resonated well with suburban teenagers at the time who identified with the anti-authoritarian and denim-clad characters in movies like Rebel Without a Cause and The Wild One. At the same time, black sharecroppers in the Jim Crow American South wore denim as they worked the fields, and civil rights activists like Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Abernathy, and Joyce Ladner wore overalls and jeans in solidarity. When white college students joined the movement with freedom rides, sit-ins, and registering people to vote, they had a racial divide but also a class divide to overcome. So they started ditching their collegiate blazers and khakis in favor of the jeans and overalls worn by the people they were trying to win over, and they kept wearing them. You can see denim's presence in the countercultural hippie movement just a few years later. The mass breaking point, however, finally came with the Elvis Presley film Jailhouse Rock, and the ensuing popularity of the King's high gyrating antics was just too much for mainstream Americans to deny. And over the next couple decades, denim gradually became accepted as a casual clothing option. Average Americans that didn't work manual labor jobs, though, weren't used to the break in process and nor the fades that could take several months or years to perfect. The popular casual denim brands in the 70s and 80s were those that stonewashed and distressed their jeans before the customers bought them and saved them the effort of breaking them in. So now everybody could put on a pair of jeans that felt just like pajama pants right after they pulled off the price tag. On the flip side, during this period, Japanese denim enthusiasts became disillusioned with American denim manufacturers. They believed that Levi's, Lee, Wrangler, and the other brands had lost their way, and a small group of Japanese companies began reproducing jeans in the same manner as the American brands from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. They were known as the Osaka Five, and they rewove their own selvage denim, recast buttons and rivets, and even bought up old sewing machines that used to make American workwear so they could produce their own new vintage jeans. These reverse engineered jeans from brands like Studio de Artisan, Avisu, and Denim began to expand beyond Japan in the late 1990s and soon inspired a new wave of American brands to recreate the jeans of the past with their own special touches and fabrics. So, in this weird sort of ping pong back and forth, these new American brands, inspired by Japanese brands, inspired by classic American brands, began producing and selling domestically in the late 2000s. And these were ones like Raleigh, Left Field, Tellison, Rogue Territory. And raw denim's popularity in the late 2000s, early 2010s grew really, really rapidly. And today there are dozens and dozens of small manufacturers making raw denim all over the world, enough to the point where sites like ours exist to document it all. So thank you, wide world of raw denim, for giving me a job. But how does that iconic and international fabric get to the point where it can be made into pants? I'll leave out some of the details, but in a nutshell, raw denim jeans are produced via these steps. So first you got sourcing. Assuming that the denim is made with 100% cotton, the first step is simply getting the cotton plants. And cotton can be sourced from many different varieties and countries, from like Australia to Zimbabwe. And there are a variety of different breeds and strains that have different properties like luster, softness, and durability, which different brands pick based on price or the qualities that they want in it. And how the cotton is harvested varies by location. Some pick it by hand, others do it mechanically. But steps afterwards include cotton carding. Now, they clean it, then they inspect it, comb it, open it, and blend it, essentially making the cotton clean and removing all the impurities and chaff so it's ready to go on for the next stage of mechanization. There's like a lot of seeds and stems and twigs and other nasty stuff in cotton that can make it really difficult for all the different steps that are to come afterwards. The next step is spinning. So now that it's been sourced and cleaned in these like nice little long slivers, it's time for it to be spun. The individual cotton fibers are combined and twisted to make the yarns that will eventually be woven to make the fabric. And there's a variety of different ways that you can spin, including you can do it open end, you can do it ring spun or double ring spun. This is sometimes called ring ring. There aren't many more details included here, but note that ring and double ring spun denim is thicker and can lead to stronger fade contrast, so denim heads often want that, and it's also slubbier, so it has more uneven threads. But then once it's spun, it goes on to warping. So the woven fabric consists of warp yarns, the ones that go vertically on a pair of jeans, and then the weft that go cross horizontally. Those are left undyed and called the fill yarns. So the warp yarns are the ones that get dyed, and there are three main methods of indigo dyeing. You've got loop dyeing, slasher dyeing, and rope dyeing. We don't need to go too deep into those, but generally if you're looking for raw, like enthusiast jeans, they're done with rope dyeing because that's the one that only dyes the outside edge of the yarn so it chips off and it fades better. There's also hank dyeing, but that's generally more of an enthusiast thing that's only done by hand by really, really intense manufacturers in Japan. Generally, the indigo dyed warp yarns are interlaced with undyed weft yarns. So it's, on jeans, how it's blue on the outside and white on the inside. And it's done in a 3x1 pattern so that for every three yarns going vertically, there's one going across it. And that's what gives it that sort of diagonal twill pattern on a pair of jeans or any denim fabric. There's a lot of other twills too, like khakis are often done in a twill. But those can be done on the weaving process done by shuttle looms and shuttle-less looms. So the shuttle looms make a selvage finished edge on the fabric, and that's what you often see on higher end raw denim fabrics. That's where they have the white edge on the outseam, like when someone turns up the cuff and it's often has like another colored line on it. And then projectile looms, which often run much, much faster and produce way more denim, but it's generally not for the enthusiast crowd in the same level. They're more commodities. There's a variety of weaving variations. So you could have, that twill line that I mentioned. You can have it go to the right for right hand twill, to the left for left hand twill, or you could have it go back and forth as broken twill. But after, it goes through the weaving process, what you have is a sheet of denim fabric, which it can then be rolled into drums and shipped off to the brand that's going to make it into jeans. That's it. So, not once during the finishing process is the denim distressed or washed in any way. It is left in its most pure and raw estate, and it will only deteriorate with the wearer's personal use. So when you first hear a denim head talking about raw jeans, it can sound like a foreign language. Maybe some of what I was talking about before sounded a little bit foreign, but there's a couple terms that will help you understand enough to not be completely taken advantage of if you wander into a jean shop. The first is selvage, and I mentioned that before. You've probably heard this surrounding raw denim, and that refers to those little colored lines that often run along the outseam of a pair of jeans. Simply, this is the self edge of a shuttle loom that was woven to keep it from unraveling, but just because it's selvage doesn't mean it's raw or even that it's denim. Almost any fabric can be woven with a selvage. And selvage denim and other textiles, for the most part, faded away in the 1950s when demand skyrocketed and they moved to those faster and cheaper projectile looms. But it's really come back among enthusiasts. A selvage line doesn't necessarily mean that the denim is better, but the mills producing the most interesting and highest quality fabrics are usually doing them on selvage shuttle looms because they just know that people will pay more for it, and that's what the enthusiasts that care about high quality denim are looking for, or often looking for. The next one would be sanforization. Almost every fabric, including denim, will shrink a little bit when it first touches water. Now, most denim on the market, raw and otherwise, is sanforized, and that's a steaming and heating process that is just basically runs through a giant steam iron that pre-shrinks the fabric before it's cut and sewn into jeans, so the pattern can be a little bit more predictable before someone puts it on and they can size it better. But there is still a decent amount that's unsanforized denim, which you will often see called shrink to fit, which will shrink about 5 to 10% the first time it's washed. You have to be careful when you're sizing unsanforized denim, and you may want to factor in like a couple inches in the waist extra or some in the length, just so like it doesn't end up being a tiny pair of pants on you. Another focus of raw denim is the weight of the fabric. So weight refers to how much a yard of the fabric weighs, a square yard in ounces. That's generally how raw denim is done. So you can have the ultralight at 5 ounces all the way up to monstrously heavy 40 ounces. The Naked and Famous just released a pair that's basically like wearing carpet on your pants. In addition to ounces, sometimes you see this as grams per square meter, but usually it's going to be in ounces. A heavier fabric is going to be stiffer, tougher, require more effort to break in before they're comfortable. But most raw denim is going to be somewhere between, like, I don't know, 12 to 15 ounces. And that weight can be worn pretty much year round and won't be too much of a pain to break in. So now that you know all this, what are the brands that you want to get into? You know, like how it's made, where it came from, and generally some terminology. Starting off with the most affordable, let's go with the big guys, Levi's, and specifically and only their 501 shrink to fit pair of jeans. This is the original, and it is still available today. It's a button fly, full fit, unsanforized, and raw. And if you want to try without breaking the bank, or you've just never faded a pair, and I think everybody should fade a pair of 501 shrink to fits at some point in their lives, it can be had for about $50, but you can't really find them at Levi's stores, surprisingly enough. If you go into just one at the mall, like, they usually don't have them in stock. The best places that I've found to find the highest quality ones are at True Blue workwear stores, the ones that have the images of Dickies and Ben Davis like in the windows, which generally have bars on them, or at Army Navy surplus stores. They typically have just like racks and racks and racks and shelves just reaching as far as the eye can see of every single possible waist and length combination. Who knows where they'll have been made? I've seen current 501 shrink to fits that were made in the Dominican Republic, Mexico. Some of the higher quality ones I've seen were made in Egypt, but you have to make sure that you size up at least one in the waist and two in the length, as I mentioned, with unsanforized denim, or they will be tiny pants that will probably leave you embittered about raw denim, and we don't want that. Another great option made in the US is Left Field. They have a lot of historical grit, variety of fits, a lot of interesting fabric options. I've known Christian McCann for about 15 years that he's made this. He started in the year 2000 out of Ridgewood, Queens. Super great guy. Selvage options started around 200 at Left Field. If you want to take some of the torture out of your first pair, though, I could recommend Hiroshi Kato. They make a four-way stretch selvage denim, and they have a wide variety of fits, so the break-in will not be nearly as intense, but they still fade pretty well. They're a Japanese brand, but surprisingly, they do all their designing and all their manufacturing in-house in LA. I got to tour their facility last year, and it's incredible. It is the largest denim production facility in the United States. And the thing that impressed me the most is all of their bathrooms for their workers have Japanese bidets with heated seats. Gotta love those Japanese companies bringing their culture over to the US. Their options for selvage are about $250. Then you can go for full Japanese brands, and there are so many incredible and canonical Japanese brands that each have their own unique character and perspective, and I could probably spend 20 minutes just naming them here. I can't go into all of them, but if you find yourself falling down this rabbit hole, maybe take a look at Studio de Artisan, TCB, Warehouse, Samurai, Pure Blue Japan, Momotaro, Burgess Plus, Sugarcane, Capital, Orslo, Flathead, Strike Gold. Again, I could go on literally all day. We have a lot about all of them on the site. Personally, I wear a pair made by Tilden Yamamoto, which is about as incredible a pair of jeans that I have ever put my legs in. And they are all made by him on a single needle sewing machine in his studio in Montana with limited dead stock selvage fabrics from the now closed White Oak Mill. If you don't know what all of those things mean, that's fine. Like, this is some end level stuff here. It takes him an entire day to make one pair, and each one is like a wearable work of art that it's taken him about 30 years of experience to master and know how to make the way that he does. So Tilden is the most expensive jean that I've mentioned, but honestly, it would be a bargain at twice the price, and I can guarantee that Levi's is making a much better margin than he is on a pair that they sell for $50. So we'll have links for all of those in the show notes. But now that you've got your raws, how do you care for them? I would say that raw jeans are probably the one item of clothing with the most polarizing and just plain weird discourse around how to wash them. It's not as crazy as it used to be, but it used to be treated like gospel that you needed to wait 6 months for your first wash, which could only be done by wearing your jeans into the ocean. That's obviously bullshit, but it was a more fun, simpler time. Like, people got mustache tattoos on their fingers and they casually rode around those old-timey bicycles with the big front wheel. This was kind of par for the course, and it was fun to see people do these things because, we had a lot more time on our hands, I guess. But here is what I personally do for when I wash my jeans. I usually do it about every 1 to 2 months. You usually know when it's time, and if you're in doubt, just wash. If you think, these are a little bit smelly, these are a little bit stinky, just do it. You won't regret washing them. I do it in the tub. Going through the spin cycle can put creases in your jeans, and it's a whole thing that might mess with the fades. And I put a little bit of laundry detergent or shampoo or some of our Heddle's Denim Wash, and then I let them sit for about 20 minutes, lukewarm water. And then I drain it out and then rinse in another tub full of water for about 20 minutes, and then I hang them to dry outside. Putting in the washing machine is generally okay. It's not going to ruin them, but do not put them in the dryer. If you take one thing away from this in buying a pair of jeans, do not put them in the dryer. It can lead to marbling, where your jeans ball up and fade like a rough piece of meat, and it will also make the inside of the dryer blue, and subsequently whatever you put in the dryer blue. So just don't put a new pair of raw jeans in the dryer. Even if you've heard, I want to hold off on washing as long as I can, if you don't wash, it can build up dirt and grime in the fabric, which only leads to more holes and blowouts. So just wash them when it feels like it's ready. If you do get holes in your jeans, though, because hopefully you'll wear them long enough to get that way, you can easily repair them. You can do it yourself on a sewing machine or by hand with the Shishiko method. We have guides for both on the site. Or there are quite a few reputable repair artists that specialize in it. There's Wearing Denim, Science and Kindness, Indigo Proof, or even your local tailor can probably do a decent job as well. For me, the older and more broken down they look, the cooler they get. So make sure you get them there and take your time with them and wash them regularly and put in the effort, and then you can send them in to revel in the glory of being on a Fade Friday feature. Biggest takeaway from it is that you want these pants to grow and reflect who you are and what you do in them. So just live your life, don't pay attention to them, and wash them when you think you need it. So, we hope that we've cleared up some of the mystery and myths surrounding raw denim. As mentioned, it is a canvas that paints itself. So, we hope that this gives you the info you need to get to work on painting your masterpiece. But this also just barely scratches the surface of everything about the wide world of denim. So be sure to look up more on the site. We have millions of words on the subject. And links for everything is in the show notes. Today's episode featured writing from the Essential Raw Denim Breakdown by yours truly on Heddles.com and the production talents of Sean Thornton. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback, suggestions for other topics, email us at blowout@heddles.com. If you noticed anything that we did incorrectly, because that's the reason you were listening, please also let me know. We love to improve. And I'm far from the first person to say that I know everything. So thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep it real and keep it raw. Bye-bye.